first April edition of the That Floats Friday Fun Happy Hour. So thank you guys for joining.
I'm excited.
We've got royalty here with ALTA. We've got the CEO of ALTA, Diane Tomb, with us.
Well, ALTA royalty. I like that. Next, I should have worn my crown, right? Next time.
Yes.
Mary has the crown, actually.
Yes.
The British, yeah,
Yes.
I can't really.
Yeah, she's got the crown on the wave.
That's right. Can't really compete with that.
Dan Wold might be joining us. He was excited about this, so he might, if he can get his jitterbug plugged into the wall, he'll have it turned on here soon. But
by the way, hats
Diane,
off to ALTA for the communication the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It's been crazy. How are you? Like, you guys are working really hard on all those articles every day.
I got to tell you, Jeremy,
tell us how that all
it
goes
warms
down.
my little heart to see Jeremy here, because I can only speak for myself, and I know Jeremy's been literally around the clock. It has been nonstop. I think up until maybe last night was the first time I had the opportunity to just kind of step back and go, whew, take a deep breath and kind of reassess where we are. But Jeremy, why don't you give these guys some ideas of, Jeremy's got some great ideas that we got things coming up as soon as next week, some really important things.
Yeah.
I'm just fortunate to work with a lot of smart people, like the Brady Bunch guy in the bottom left-hand corner.
They're all
And
different.
by the way, everybody has a different person above, below. So
We don't know who your Brady Bunch person is.
And Rob is there, and
All right.
Renee is there, and Jeremy, you're there, and Cheri is there for me. Hold on, there.
Andrew's somewhere.
So
David, are we supposed to take notes here? And Burding's on the bottom for me, just in a blank screen with a phone
Burding looks
icon.
like a telephone.
Well, I was referring to Mr. Gottheim, so.
There you go. All right.
Gotcha. So yeah,
Gottheim was great. Last week's That Float, Gottheim was great. We had this great question all ready for him. We tee it up. He walks away. And then
Yes.
I'm like, what the heck? And he finally came back and gave us a good answer. So we appreciate that. Then he had to walk one of his children or his.
Are we gonna have
I forgot
Mookie
the
sighting?
child's name. It's a great name.
Mookie.
Mookie.
That's the child's name.
Yeah, that's what we're calling him.
So, a question for you guys.
Yeah.
Rob Skidmore from Ohio, a newbie to this That Floats. How did you come up with the name, and what's the kind of what's behind this whole thing?
Are you a David
Good
Letterman
question.
fan?
Yeah, David Letterman fan, absolutely.
So Letterman had a thing called Does It Float? And he had this big tank of water, and he'd throw stuff into the water, and it like a bone-in ham or a piano or whatever, and say, does it float? And Craig and I, for years, when there would be speakers up at ALTA and they'd be talking about things, we'd say, does it float? And if it floated, it was good. And if it sank, it wasn't good.
Because prior to him, he would have this big pool on the stage, and he would ask Paul Schaefer. He would say, "All right,
Yes.
Paul, we have a watermelon. Will it float?" And then they would banter back and forth whether it would float. He'd throw it in. It would either float or not. They'd close the curtain and they'd move on. There was no banter. It was just like, okay, turns out it doesn't float, and they'd move to the next thing. So
Yes.
I don't know. We've used the term "that floats." Does that drink float? That drink floats.
Yeah, does that float? Yeah. Hey, how about the lunch at Advocacy? Did it float? No, didn't float.
No,
You
the
know.
float didn't float at Advocacy. The lunch wasn't that good, so it didn't float.
So that's how we did this, and we thought our podcast floats. So
And then the concept behind it, not just the name, but was David and I do a lot of travel for Title, and especially active with ALTA. And when we get together for conferences, I'll run into someone and they'll say, "Oh, you won't believe this crazy, file I had." And then it's the most amazing story, or a craziest closing you've ever heard, or something with money or fraud. And it's just like, that is a great story, but only 8 people got to hear it. So, and then I would try to repeat the story, and it never worked. So we just decided that, with technology, and both of us are somewhat nerds, that we would try to get stories out of people and have them share them, and we put them on a podcast. So that's kind of how it started. And then we started doing interviews at conferences, and now this Corona thing. And then, so that's sort of where it's going. But I think we've got 24 episodes in the can on YouTube and all those sites. But yeah.
in fact, one of our first live interviews was riding an escalator with the CEO,
Megan
Diane Tomb.
Hernandez.
I do. I remember that. That was
That was fun.
That was my first ALTA one too.
Yes.
I think I think that interview did need to be scrubbed, maybe.
No, it was great.
No?
It was great. No editing needed. No.
You made it. You were on it.
No, it was outstanding.
And now what we're doing is we're just basically, telling people, that we're just getting sponsorship dollars thrown at us left and right. And we're just trying to keep the fans off. And
just
we're
making it
trying to, keep it small and intimate. So, but then the Zoom thing comes along and we thought, well, the first couple of these was basically like, how's everyone handling this whole concept of we might have to work at home?
Yeah, that
was the first week. The second week was, what are we going to do with closers at home, but the closings are in the office? So we did digital closings last week. And then this week's just somewhat haven't really necessarily picked our route here of where to go. But
I think this week is where are we at now and where do we go? Because we're at the point now where the original stay-at-home orders are being extended. So what we thought was going to be mid-April is now end of April, which is probably going to be June 1, to be honest with you. I mean, do you guys all think that we're looking June 1 to maybe come out of this? Because I don't know about you, but our state, we're just now getting a lockdown statewide announced today.
Yeah,
and that's not great.
The earliest. Yeah.
So like the major cities, Kansas City, St. Louis, Columbia Spring, like all the big cities in Missouri did it. But our governor's like, I don't know. But today we're finally getting that. But our peak is supposed to be like mid-May now as a result. Mm-hmm. When you look at some of those things. So it's probably going to – we're not going to go back to school. I know that. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I mean, I think the other panic was the first week. And I think – and again, back to ALTA, the communication that we're getting with the list of closures, I think that's been critical because – there was somewhat of a panic, like, how are we going to ensure title if the courthouses are closed? And then all of a sudden it was, okay, most of them are open, or you can e-record, or they're, you can't search all the way back in the records, but the underwriters have been pretty cool, giving us a couple, take on a little risk, take a couple shortcuts to provide the consumer a venue to get title work. And then, now it's kind of transformed into, okay, now we've got that title part of it figured out. How are we going to close? So the issues that I'm seeing daily now are with these remote notary rules. And I was telling David earlier today that it's just different, that I think we're missing a little bit of guidance from underwriting on the notary rules, because it seems like every hour there's another memo on, all right, you don't need to do full run, you can do this, but maybe not FaceTime. And so it's across the board. And we're aware of title agents in several states that are doing, goofy things that seem okay, like FaceTime. And we're not getting very clear guidance from underwriting as to what we're supposed to do when we know that there are other folks out there not notarizing properly. So, I mean, it might help this transaction, but if the next transaction that we might be involved in is coming from a buyer that received a notarized deed that wasn't notarized properly, our transaction's in jeopardy, and it might have been from a year or two from now. So I think we need to get pretty good guidance from underwriting on that. But
Steve, I'm going to send you something, by the way, to chew on before our meeting on Monday. Are we going to have the underwriter executive section meeting?
Steve, I think it's on the calendar for sure. Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to send you something here after this to take a look at, to make sure if we can discuss it. I might need you to run it by antitrust counsel first.
I was wanting to ask Rob a question. Rob, if you're willing to share.
Oh, yeah.
Ohio was one of the early adopters of RON and promulgated their rules last year. And Rob, you were setting up your shop last summer, I believe, to handle RON transactions. So you're probably in a good spot to maybe be handling.
Well, we are signed up with Pavaso and we're able to do that. But the reality of, the lenders and the lender side is the big issue. It's really easier with the sellers. But the other aspect, I know they're working hard at Pavaso, but just making it very user friendly. A couple of the test runs we've had to really, they need to use a cell phone, they need to have a camera on their computer, and then they need to have Google Chrome on their device. So there's just a lot there, and it's kind of hard almost to compete with that app Notarize on your cell phone at this point. So we're still, we advertise that we're doing it, and we're doing it with a few occasions, but not to the extent that we expected at this point. It seems like it's more with the drive-ups and things like that. But yeah, Ohio, back to Craig's point, I don't think Ohio I haven't seen any underwriter memos from we write with two companies, Old Republic and Chicago, and I haven't seen either of them talk about a relaxed FaceTime or any of that in Ohio, because we have a Ron statute in place. I know there's talk of it, but I haven't seen anything. So
we have a Ron statute in place in our 3 or 4 states, and the memos are okay, even though there's a Ron statute. Here's what I'm getting. This is just Craig. I get a feeling like, okay, title agents aren't really ready. We weren't really scaled up for the full blown Ron stuff yet. And the Ron vendors are under extreme pressure right now because there's a ton of demand and they can't get to everyone. Yep. So in lieu of losing all these closings, all right, maybe we'll come up with a more clever way to witness a notary or witness a signature. And it might not comply exactly with the law. And it doesn't really comply with Ron because it's not, secure, tamper-proof evidence kept for 10 years. But we're in this weird time. Let's just wing it for a couple months. That's what I'm getting the feeling of. Even though we're trying to do everything the right way, we're constantly getting lenders saying, well, ABC down the road is able to do it this way. How come you guys aren't? And I say, well, I don't see that in the law that allows that. So we're doing it the right way. And I know it's hard to get ready the right way. Rob, you identified a certain company. Yeah, it's not easy, but it's the only way I think we can do it right now. But unless the underwriters completely relax their requirements just during this period of time, I don't know. Yeah. And Amy's shaking her head no.
Yeah, really, the biggest issue is going to be in the states like New York and others that don't have Ron enacted. Like Missouri, we've got the law that's like this close to being passed. So we have emergency rules, but attorneys are going to use FaceTime and all that stuff. But we can't have that for real estate documents.
I will just say Natick is not going to do that. We follow the rules, which is FaceTime is no bueno.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Vamos a hablar solamente en español, entonces. Cerveza?
Please don't. I want to know more about your background. What's going on back there, Cheri?
Welcome. Well, we had the Ohio guy over there, so I thought, welcome to Wisconsin, on Wisconsin. That's Camp Randall Stadium. By the way, normally does not look like that because every time I'm there, there is just snow upon snow. Lots of somewhat imbibed individuals on a Saturday afternoon.
Well, that sounds like many football fields across the country, right? Got the snow. That's cool.
Can we block Cornelia by chance from putting up that Alabama stuff again?
Oh. So Jeremy, what articles do you have coming out here soon? What exciting stuff? And I know Megan, you're on as well too. So we've got a lot of ALTA folks on here from the communications department at ALTA.
Yeah, obviously we're not communicating right now.
Right, we are. We're communicating through that flow. They're recording us, so.
Exactly.
Well, our expert Steve is going to be on a webinar on Tuesday talking about the new paycheck protection program through the SBA and all the various loan financing options that are available to small business, large business. That'll be pretty good. We've got about 750 registered so far. Pretty good. What else we got going on?
Let me touch on the SBA thing real quick, Jeremy. I watched a seminar put on by David's company yesterday, and right now, this time of the year, it's cash flow heavy for Midwest or people that are usually buried in snow this time of the year, where this is the time of the year where you finally can actually bring in some green. But my question yesterday was, do you have to be struggling or do you have to have losses in order to take some SBA money? And the lender that David had on said, no, if you want to, you don't have to show losses. So if there's a title agents out there that are doing okay, but maybe want to use this money to expand a little bit or hire more, that's certainly from David's guy's perspective, certainly acceptable. And I thought, well, this is just a free money grab then. And that question was answered as a no, because then they might not forgive it. You might have to pay it back. So it would turn into like a normal loan. But I thought that was kind of interesting with this SBA. I must have been texted 3 or 4 times from title agent friends of mine in the Midwest today asking, what the deal is with that. So I thought that was sort of interesting.
Yeah, you don't have to have suffered actual losses yet or laid off individuals yet. You do have to make a certification that you believe your economic future is uncertain due to COVID. And then you then have to spend the money in a acceptable manner if you want the loan forgiveness. So, it is a little bit of for title agents. The market maybe hasn't been as bad, and they haven't had a economic hit yet. But if they think that one might be coming in the rest of this year, it's talk to your bank now, get in line for money now, because you can always pay it back without incurring any interest if you don't wind up needing it.
Yeah, and I just want to reinforce the point of get in line now, because even though it sounds like a lot of money, it's going to run out. And
it's not, like they said, it's like if it's $11,000 per business if like you spread it out over a certain amount. But our banker yesterday, we asked him this question a few times. It's like, this is not designed to like you have to show losses. It's keeping your employees working during this time.
Right.
It's just keeping payroll going because that keeps the economy going. That allows them to buy groceries, to buy dinner, order things on Amazon, just keep the overall churn going in the economy. So it's not necessarily you're suffering business losses or you have to let people go. It's you keep them on the roll. So if you've got 20 employees now, you borrow the money and you've got 20 employees at the end, that's the whole point of this, is to help you keep, if your revenue dips, you're able to still pay them, problem solved. That's the whole purpose of this loan. And then you keep those people on long enough, it's forgivable at that point, maybe forgivable at that point. Now,
isn't that risky though? You're just kind of hoping that you've got a good story to tell at the end of this crisis where they're going to ask you to pay it back or not. It's not usually when you go into a loan, you know exactly where you stand when the payment terms, when it's paid back or not.
Well, remember,
this is either a grant or a loan.
Even if it's not forgiven, it's still very cheap money, comparatively to any other business loan you're going to get. 1% interest, 2-year loan. I mean, so it's cheap money no matter what. But right now, the guidance says all you have to do is showcase that you didn't lay anybody off and didn't lower anybody's salaries, and that you paid out an equivalent amount in payroll over the next 8 weeks after loan origination. So if you can document that, then you should get your forgiveness.
Yep. Yes.
Chime in.
If they don't get forgiveness, is there enhanced deductions or anything that comes into play? I'm thinking it's so much better for the government to have people stay on the private company employer payroll than go into unemployment.
Yes.
That we have.
This is much cheaper than unemployment.
That's
Rob,
exactly what they're trying to do. Yeah.
I've heard some advice that it may be best to put it in a separate account and draw off of it if needed. But again, as you said, to make sure that you've met the criteria so that it's forgiven, but it may be best to not commingle it with your general business account.
Certainly, that would make it easier to prove up that you used that money for payroll. If you put it into a separate account, then use that to fund payroll for 2 months. It's a lot easier to paper trail that you used it for a forgivable purpose.
Yeah.
And payroll can be more than just your salaries. It can include health insurance and things like that.
And Steve, nothing I've seen shows you really have to paper it. It's just basically you have to keep everybody on the payroll at the same level. Not necessarily show that it went directly towards payroll.
Yeah, I mean, technically you can use it more for things more than payroll. The 75% of the dollars have to go to payroll.
Exactly.
But you just have to be able to. The guidance on forgiveness isn't out yet. They've only done the guidance on applications, and so the kind of word of advice that they're giving is if you think about how you're going to document that you spent this money on a forgivable purpose on payroll, basically.
Yeah. Now there's another grant that's out there that's not tied to payroll.
Correct. There's the EIDL grants, the emergency disaster loan. I don't remember what the I stands for. The disaster loans. Those are $2 million loans at about 3.5% interest, where you can get 10 grand of it automatically as a grant. But there's a lot less money available there, and they're a lot harder to get. They have a lot more underwriting in them.
Yeah, that one cannot be used for payroll. It has to be used for equipment, for supplies, for other things. Hey, look who joined us. Megan. Meg. Cheers.
Hi. I finally have been sitting here for 30 minutes and just now got my camera working, but that's fine.
Hey, Megan.
Hi.
Oh, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ALTA staffers.
What about on the other? What about on the furlough or reduction in staff side? I haven't really seen any title agents in my world reducing or anything just because of the volume right now. I mean, is anybody else seeing anything like that now? And as far as stressing out, I mean, the refis are still coming in pretty good. It seems like purchase market's okay. I don't think it's gangbusters, but
anecdotally, I've heard from folks Craig, that folks are planning to do that. And I think the response that we got when we did the webinar earlier this week, when folks were so interested about the accessing the SBA, I think we should probably anticipate that we're going to see a lot of that.
On the underwriter or on the agent side too? You're
that I don't know.
Okay.
You know, and just sort of across the board, I think we were, at least for me, it was very clear that was top priority for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Scary.
Yeah.
I mean, just a few weeks ago, it was heading into the greatest year possibly ever, coming off the greatest year we've ever come
biggest
off
order
of.
days you've ever had.
Yeah.
We're still, we're record-breaking orders still coming in hot and heavy.
So
weird.
Well, we're lucky on here. We've got a great marketer with Heather. I know she's done a lot with marketing during this time. Heather, how are you marketing to folks during this?
You know, I'm kind of, from a business perspective, I'm at an all-time high as far as my numbers are like the highest they've been since I've been with BNT. But it's obviously because of the rates. But to kind of maintain, I think a lot of people are kind of just saying, oh, people are in a funk. Whereas when you do the reverse psychology and really reach out once a week, they really appreciate that. So it's been, I've actually, and the second point is from like a prospecting standpoint, a lot of people, there's a few attorneys in the city that, oh my gosh, he's so cute.
Mookie is very cute.
He is adorable. I missed that age. But from New York, there were a couple attorneys that I was trying to get, and, you know, months could not get on their calendar. And, you know, obviously everyone's home now, and they actually, you know, have picked up and sent me orders. So, you know, everybody's home. So it's like, they don't have a choice to pick up.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, Andrew, I know you're kind of in a different type of industry than, you know, a title agent, but you work with a lot of title agents. How are you guys operating right now with this? Are you picking up customers? What type of calls are you fielding right now?
Lots of calls. Yeah. Sorry for being, I feel like a little disconnected. I didn't want to have FOMO, so I'm here, but I'm also working because we are
real quick.
Busy.
Everybody might not know what DBello does, so you might just this is your chance to do a quick plug on exactly what you do. I know you had a great episode of That Floats in Denver.
One of the best I've heard.
It was very highly rated. Yes, I think we might be up for an Emmy. I'm not sure yet.
Your check bounced though.
Check with Jeff on that one.
Thank you.
DBello though, really, I mean, it's pretty normal now in some ways, the new normal, but we provide a remote title workforce for agents and underwriters all across the country. So as other outsourcing vendors went down and people had to shift their responsibilities, they said, oh man, how do we get all this done? You know, and word spreads quickly in this industry. So our resources are still working. We have a full remote force just across the world doing title work in the US, which is kind of a strange paradigm, but I always joke that our team probably knows title better than most here in the States. So we've been swamped with new business, new calls, just trying to figure out how to help, you know, agents and underwriters that are still doing a lot of work, even in this environment. So
yeah,
I feel like I'm working multiple time zones across the world, just trying to keep things going.
Your workforce is mainly in the Philippines, correct?
Correct. Yep. Mostly.
So the India lockdown did not affect you as much. I mean, that was like one day India was open for business, the next day it shut down.
Yeah, the Philippines is pretty similar, but we have a full remote system set up anyway. So it's just getting hotspots and computers out to everyone so that they can be ready to go. So we have that fully set up. So they're still on a lockdown. No one's really at our office, but they're all working from home just like we are.
Excellent.
David,
Excellent.
you know, we've done part one of the title agents being able to get title information in non-traditional ways rather than walk across to the courthouse or log into the courthouse. We've talked about Andrew's company at DeBello and some others providing some of that work for agents. We haven't talked, we teased, but we haven't yet recorded our algorithm-based title search product. So I know we want to get together with some title agents who are friends of mine who are against this, who are, you know, traditional, go to the courthouse, roll up our sleeves kind of people, versus the other side that's, you know, where, you know, within 90 seconds, some search product spits out. So
there's a difference between algorithm and search and all that. And I know that, you know, Amy, you can probably talk to this at some point because you're living it day to day. You guys run have the full gamut of it. So
We are working on it.
we're working on it. Yeah.
I can't really comment much more than that at this point, but yeah, we are working on an instant underwriting product.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as simple as people think. It's not like you roll the dice and you're like, Yahtzee, title product. You know,
Right.
That's not how it works. So
only if you're an agent's national agent.
yeah, we just let you insure whatever you want. It's not that big a deal. We'll just pay, you know, the claims will come later. Well, don't worry about it. Somebody else will deal with that. Right, TJ?
Absolutely right. I just while we're stopping, I wanted to show everybody that the source of my relief has also been the source of my displeasure this week. So a little bit of everybody.
TJ Harrington joining us. So
Cheers.
Excellent. We got Todd Mendolia also on here. So he's on via phone.
So I have a lot of experience with title engines for good or for bad, so it's very topical. I was with one of those big box Pittsburgh title shops that ran something called Smart Connection, which was a rule-based waterfall title engine. Really, it was more of a workflow decision engine, whether you'd need a full or a truncated search or certain pre-cleared items based on credit scores or other data pulls. X1, which is another underwriter's product today, is a light year beyond what that was. And now you have other products in the market that are looking at it. You have analytics driven from like a state's title model. I'm not going to use the word casualty product, but I think it pushes the boundaries of what I'd call prudent underwriting, which is the requirement to meet the monoline statutes for title. You know, I think there's a full spectrum on it, and as David said, it's not just wish bang, there's a title. There's some elements to it, and I think that we're kind of in a place where there's a spectrum, and depending on how you tune the rules, it's either a good product for the industry or it's a bad product for the industry.
But I think we should when we have this episode, I already know two people that will be guests, but let's make sure there's two separate things here, right? There's the search, the automated search portion of it, and then there's the algorithm automated brain underwriting section of it. And that's so maybe two different things. So, but they're fascinating. So if you're in a workflow crunch right now, you're short staff, or you've got too much work, you can't possibly hire, which, so 2 months ago. It's worth looking into either the DeBello model, the analytic model, or both, in addition to the traditional workforce. So I think we're at sort of an inflection point in the title business right now.
So
I'm going to do this. That's right. You tell them.
Dave has something to say.
I don't know who this Gabe person is, but Mookie is talking a lot. Mookie, what do you say about limited durable power of attorneys and closings, doing a hybrid wet signature with the agent? What do you think about that, man? He's silent on that topic. Okay. Are you guys running into that with lenders? Anybody seeing that where they're wanting kind of a hybrid e-signature / remote, or kind of going around the standard RON situations?
Oh yeah, Absolutely. I mean, everybody's trying to come up with a way not to be able to touch each other, to be at opposite ends of the table, to be plate glasses, to be able to have your own independent pens, to be able at the curbside closing. I mean, we're being creative. One would hope that we're following the law as it currently written, both today as well as into the future. We've created some really good opportunities to be able to get these accomplished. I know what I find, here's something I never would have thought 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So lender says you can do a RON for the mortgage. And we say, that's not a problem. We can do that all day long. And they say, what about the promissory note? And they're not ready to throw that promissory note up into the e-vault. So they'll do a FaceTime with their borrower, do the promissory note, and have them mail it within the 3-day rescission. Lender takes control of that promissory note that's wet signed. We go ahead and do the remote closing mortgage to get that in the land records. I mean, everyone's just becoming creative. And I think that completely fits in. And Steve probably will jump in and correct me that I'm doing it wrong. Or Steve, tell me what I just said that was wrong.
You got it really good, Cheri.
That's 10 against me. I'll take the 1 and then I'll sign off.
Her review is next week, Steve. Keep it coming.
There you go.
You know, I am, unlike a government official, I'm allowed to take bribes, so are open for business.
Right.
Heather, apparently you know a lot of things. Can you just send a couple $1,000s to Steve that way? That'd be great. I appreciate it.
Well done. Hey, Diane, could you tell us about hashtag good deeds a little bit?
Yeah, how exciting is that? You know, I'd love to take a lot of credit for it, but Megan and Jeremy have been trying to get folks within the title industry to send them some of the good stories that you're talking about. You know, anecdotally, I can share with you, I was talking to a member and they were in their office and they hadn't, the state hadn't done a shelter in place yet, but there weren't a lot of people around, and a police officer put something on their windshield wiper and they were a little nervous and they went down and pulled out the envelope and it was a mask. And they were like, oh, that was great. So we've been hearing all kinds of stories about people doing nice things for other people, you know, within our industry and outside of it. So what we're trying to do is have a social media campaign around it. And good deeds, we thought would be a really good way to sort of market it. Megan, do you want to talk a little more about that? And I know both Megan and Jeremy really have been, you know, the brains and the engine behind this.
Sure. I mean, you said it. It's exactly what you're talking about, that we just want to see what's going on in the communities across the United States. And it's not just about what you're doing for your business. It's about what you're doing for your community. So we're really excited to see what people have come up with and how they're helping and how they're being good neighbors.
So whether you're a recipient of someone else's kindness or whether you're doing it for others, we want to hear all about it. And just share the love.
For us in our town, we have a Facebook page called Basking Ridge, Helping Basking Ridge. And what they're doing is they're, obviously all the college kids are home and they're bored, and some of them are in school, some of them are not, but they're actually buying groceries. And the actual site is just for helping people in this crisis that we're in. And they're saying that I'm not going to charge $30, because there's some people that are like, there was one story that I read that college kids are helping elderly people and just people in general who don't want to go. People, you know, women who are pregnant or, you know, what have you. There's a group that's doing it just complimentary, just volunteering, giving their time, offering to go to the grocery if you need, no matter how many things, regardless. And then there was another thing that I read where Uber drivers are, in lieu of driving, because no one's no one's really going anywhere, they are volunteering their time to get things for people. There's some local stores that are gathering scarves that are designer scarves, but they're using them for, you know, people who just need them. You know, so there's a lot, because I'm kind of going week 3 or maybe even longer. I feel like it's like week 10, but you know, I've kind of been on lockdown for a while being in New Jersey, because it's awful in New York, obviously. But I haven't driven my car in like a week and a half, which is just weird. But anyway, there's a lot of stuff where people are coming together, and I think Facebook is really where it's at. You know, people are saying, you know, what do you need? You know, like my hairdresser's pregnant and due like any day, and she's like freaking out. And you know, a lot of people who are pregnant, their doctors are saying they can't get their last 2 doctor's appointments because our hospitals are full. So it's just crazy. You know, it's just kind of unfathomable. I can't imagine being pregnant and missing my last 2 of all appointments, you know,
or having to go to
really coming together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'd love to capture that. You know, we'd love to particularly relate it to the title industry, whether it happened to you and you just happen to be in the title industry, or, you know, one of your members, that type of thing, and really kind of just highlight the good stuff, right? Because we know there's a lot of bad stuff out there. So thanks
Greg,
for the plug, David. We appreciate it.
Say what?
Thanks for the plug. We appreciate it.
Well, no. I want to support that. I mean, ALTA's been great for everyone in this situation, and the newsletters and everything you guys are putting out are absolutely phenomenal. From tracking the closures of you know, county recorders to everything that's going on and getting the word out to our membership. This is where ALTA steps up. So,
well, I'd love to tell that story if you guys haven't heard it. You know, again, it was 2 weeks ago, maybe longer. Steve, correct me if I'm wrong. Seems like a lifetime ago, but it was Steve and Elizabeth and others were starting to hear word that, you know, these county courthouses were being shut down, and they started crowdsourcing. You know, they asked,
Yep.
send us your information. We'll put up what we know. And before we knew it, Kelly and, you know, the rest of the other team also got involved, and now we've got this big state chart. We've got pie charts, and it's evolving. You know, one of the things we're hoping that we can continue to monitor is the gap time, you know, where it's becoming a big issue for a lot of folks. So stay tuned. It's really, you know, turned into not just for the title industry, but we have, you know, Mark Calabria over at FHFA was interested because he had heard about it, and they're using it, you know, so the government's using it on their behalf. It's really, so, you know, Elizabeth, Steve, Jeremy, Megan, I can go on, Kelly and Paul, everybody, they really just kind of stepped up, saw an opportunity, and filled that void. So it's really been exciting to watch.
Well, Diane, it's great you mentioned Mark over at FHFA. Your connections with both FHFA and the FHA and the executive branch have been just phenomenal in getting ALTA expanding, not just from the legislative outreach that we've had, but to executive branch outreach. And I think that's really had a better lift for us as well too, especially right now where so much of what's happening is at the executive level through regulations, et cetera.
Thanks. I appreciate that, David. And, you know, we've also reached out to CFPB folks. We've been really trying to do our best to just stay connected, and everybody's trying to share information. So the more we hear from you guys, like what's happening on the ground, we can feed that back. Folks are hungry for that information. They kind of want to know what they need to be doing. You know, Steve can talk a little more about this. Earlier this week, the GSEs reached out to us. They wanted to hear from us what more they could be doing to help us. You know, that puts, you know, think it back a year ago, you know, when they didn't even think we should exist, right? And now they're just asking us for, you know, what we need. So.
Oh my, have the tables have turned. By the way, well done, Diane, creating this virus to turn the tables. But I know the blowback on the whole deaths was not what you were looking for. But you know, it's you know, desperate times. No, I'm kidding.
No.
You can edit that out, Craig.
Yeah.
Take that out.
But don't edit out Encroach that's right behind you, because we have 4 of the 5 members of Encroach on this
of the
call
founding
right now.
members. That was a hairless
look at
face
that.
Steve too.
Yeah, look at Steve on that. I mean, that's really impressive with Steve.
Wait, can
on
you go back
Encroach
to
right
that?
there.
I've never seen that. Can we go back to that?
It's on my screen. Look at
Look-
my
look-
background.
Oh,
look up
wow.
there.
Oh, yeah.
You should.
Okay.
You should. Yeah.
All
so
right.
that was Taipei Karaoke in Arizona.
Steve
my.
is doing the
I
bye
still
bye
have that
bye
suit.
really well.
Mhm.
Bye bye bye.
It was outstanding. Bates couldn't make it. He has a solo career and decided to break off from the group.
Bates is
Wow.
actually working. Did
Wow.
Andrew? Well, there's Andrew.
Yeah. So yeah,
I
4
have
of
to
the 5
go
are
soon
here.
here too.
Right.
Oh, Andrew, you didn't have a beard either.
Yeah.
This is the quarantine beard, yeah.
Yeah, TJ's is really looking nice.
I noticed Steve had one too. I was kind of surprised by that.
I would look like a calico cat. It's like a little brown, a little gray, a little black, like missing a little hole right here. It'd just be very, very poor. Yeah.
Let's get Andrew out of here because I know he's got a couple of my orders he's got to go figure out too, right?
Yeah,
it's true. See you in the inbox. I'll talk to you guys later.
Sir.
See you, Andrew.
Thanks.
See you, bud.
Hey, Todd's here. We haven't even
Bye,
heard from
brother.
Todd. Todd's just like hanging out all lonely over there.
Todd's a lurker. Oh, and he's muted.
No,
Todd's
he's not.
official new nickname is the Mandalorian.
The Mandalorian. There you go.
And then he just bailed. Where'd he go?
He was having some technical issues.
There we go.
There he is.
Trying to unmute. So
There he is. He's on the telephone.
am I off mute now?
Yeah,
Yes.
you're good. So
Yeah.
those of
Hey,
you who don't
Todd.
know Todd, he is a COO of Agents National Title down in
Hey,
Dallas.
Todd.
Hey.
I think you told me all about Todd, David, when we were looking for some potential new faculty, maybe in Denver, right?
Yes, I did. I said he'd be a great speaker
Yeah.
for
So
ALTA.
we're going to keep you on our list, Todd. We know you're out there.
Okay. No, let me know.
So there you go. And you know what I love is Amy's 9 Inch Nails shirt because that is outstanding.
Yeah. Yeah, it is nice.
Yes. Yes.
Inductee, if that ever happens.
I was wearing Madra's patchwork pants earlier. Steve, I think you saw them at the Breakers the last time, and Cornelia. But yeah, it was. I was like, I'm gonna wear these pants today. Nobody's gonna see them, but we're gonna have fun today.
It's Friday.
Yeah, I had to do
Finally.
a treadmill, so now I've changed, so I didn't ruin those nice pants.
Different flavor than casual Friday at the office.
So in the last couple minutes here, I just want to know: does anyone have any predictions for next week? Because a couple weeks ago was in the title. Like keep it to title stuff, but
Yes.
a couple weeks ago we were worried about how the hell are we going to search and examine records? How are we going to sell title insurance? And then last week was okay. We've got that figured out. How are we going to close? So what's next week? I mean, anyone?
Greg, do you want something funny or do you want something Debbie Downer?
No, I want Bill Burding chimed in. I want to hear from
Burding,
Bill.
come on, man.
Nice.
Well, California has been a little bit ahead of the curve on a lot of stuff. And if you see what's going on, especially Northern California, Southern California is a little bit behind. They have redefined necessary businesses here as if you go into the office, you have to be necessary to a necessary business. Yeah. And that definition that changed 2 days ago redid all of our Northern California operations.
Wow.
We're hearing that that's going to happen in California. It's definitely going to happen in Nevada because we've already heard from the governor, and that's going to spread quickly because the definition is going to change. So my best guess is that's going to be the next thing that happens is that you have to be deemed necessary to the necessary business. And we're having to put up in front of all of our operations in Northern California, which I think we have like 19 shops in Northern Cal. You have to lock it up and you have to put almost like a quarantine zone thing. And then you have a big box, which is about a laundry list of everything that you have to do. And you have to have check boxes on each one of them. And if you don't have a checkbox on one, the police can, and then you have to put an explanation behind it. The police will come in and then deal with you accordingly. So if it happens there, we have been somewhat ahead of the curve. We started basically almost the same time as New York, and we have been very vigilant here in California, and we've gotten more vigilant this month or this week. And things that have happened here have gone across the country, and the verbiage has gone across the country. And I definitely see that happening next week. And I think that's going to happen in more Western states, but it could very well happen in New York. It could happen in Pennsylvania is a goofy state for how their regulations or their rules are written, but it's going to happen in numerous states. And that's my prediction for next week. And it's okay. It's doable. But you're going to have to do more of what you do.
Wow, I hadn't heard that. That's awesome. That's very interesting. That's worth the price of admission here.
Bill, what do you look at as far as the necessary to the necessary? So our people are trying to close all these refinance transactions. Is that necessary to a necessary, essential, critical business, depending on what you do? How is your interpretation moving on that?
Well, it depends on what you do and where you are. For example, we're necessary to necessary means somebody has to be at the office. There's some jobs that simply can't be done away from the office. If you can do your job away from the office, you have to do your job away from the office. If you can do your job part-time, you have to do your job part-time. When it comes to signings, you have like a signer, but then you have to demonstrate that you keep distance during this execution period. So you have to keep social distancing during the execution period. So we have set up, and luckily we're blessed with good weather, not being in northern states and snow and stuff like that. But you actually set up tables outside, and you do most of the signings via DocuSign or one of the platforms. And then the only documents that need the wet signatures, you literally put them out with a fresh pen. They stay 6 feet away from you, and then you go back and forth, and then the one document that needs to be signed gets signed, and that's your closing. So we're either doing it if the weather's bad, we're doing it inside, or we're doing it outside. But the only people that have to be there are the signers and the people who actually have to be in the office, because if they can't be in the office, they can't do their work. If they can do their work away, they have to be away.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So we've got sales reps that are, you can't do sales appointments, can't go calling on anyone, but luckily most of our sales reps are people who are former closers who just say, I think I'd rather call on business now and try to earn some business. So since they've got their notary license, we've made most of our sales reps RON certified people, so they can actually sit at home and handling remote transactions versus furloughs or layoffs. So I think that's pretty interesting. But yeah, I've got to talk to Cheri after this now and say, who's necessary?
Bill, have you seen
crazy? And we don't have RON in our state. RON is invalid in California. So we have to, as it is in several Western states, but we have to see them. So we have to practice social distancing during the execution, and usually we're down to one document. So what would be normally a 1 hour signing is about a 2 to 3 to 4 minute signing, and literally drive up, sign, distance, and go. But a lot of times what we're doing is we're having, as opposed to having multiple signers at the office, like doing we'll just have one signer be there one day and next signer be there the next day, that type of thing. So we're really down to skeleton crews. And since Northern California went to this, it's gone from 1 county to 5 counties to about 15 counties. But we're understanding next week it's going to be in Southern California, and then probably moving to Nevada as well, and Washington, from what I hear. I don't know that for sure.
Bill, there was a directive from the California Secretary of State's office offering to recognize RON closings done in other states through full faith and credit. Is there any sort of potential enabling statute for RON moving through California, or is that just dead as a doornail?
No, it's not dead as a doornail, but as Steve will acknowledge, that Secretary of State was to get Diane Feinstein to get off of opposing the RON statute. That it was the emergency statute that was going in place in the Secure Act. So that's the only reason it was, and it was grudgingly at best. And the Secretary of State letter really didn't say we acknowledge it. It's like, well, this is what the statute says.
Right.
It has been defeated in California multiple times, and we have a huge amount of independent notaries here who basically deluged Feinstein's office to oppose Ron for years. So she has a very negative opinion, and she's and Steve can speak this much better than I can. She was part of the group that was making these decisions, and not having her on board was a problem for getting the statute through, the emergency statute through.
Thanks, Bill.
Well, that was definitely on the Debbie Downer side, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
thanks for screwing up our podcast, Bill.
On that note,
Sorry
I've
about
got to
that.
sign off here, but thank you guys for doing this and for hosting this. This is great.
Thank you.
Yes, guys, we've hit our hour, so we will. We're going to post this. Craig will do some editing, so we'll edit out that whole part about Diane and the conspiracy. But we will keep in everything talking about Steve and Encroach, so that's
Excellent.
important.
Yes.
But really appreciate the great conversation today, and we do this every Friday, same time, and we just try to get different perspectives on what's going on in the industry and what's happening, and just kind of a good time to chat and see what everybody's up to.
Well, look forward to seeing everybody next week.
Yep, nice to see you.